Brian, man, thanks so much for coming on the show here today. Super excited to catch up with you. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much, Mike. It's
Of
been a pleasure
course.
to get to know you, and I'm very excited to talk to you today. My name is Brian Pannuzzo. I am almost 42, be 42 this week, and I am an imperfect, very imperfect father of two. I have a 10-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. I've been married for 12 and a half years to my wife, Tasha, born and raised in New Jersey, Bergen County, New Jersey, just outside of New York City. And basketball, as I know, is near and dear to your heart and a lot of people that you interact with and your listeners. Basketball is a big part of my life throughout my career. Played in high school, played in college, sort of messed around trying to play professionally overseas a little bit after school. Ultimately, decided to join the workforce with the rest of corporate America. And my mission ever since is to dominate the washed up the men's leagues that I play. So that's a little bit about me. And definitely excited to be here. So thanks for having me, man.
Of course, of course. So before we jump into the show, if you don't mind, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your career path because needless to say, a lot of people, that come on this show, they've got a similar career path, right? They like go to college and they have an internship and da 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 da. Your career path is very unique. So I would love it if you would dive into what you did come out of school and then give us some insight as to what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So I was a business and economics major in college. I went to school in Vermont, St. Michael's College in Vermont, basketball scholarship. And growing up in New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan, being a business major, having a bunch of guys on the team that were older than me that I looked up to and followed. They all entered Wall Street trading programs, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I graduated in 1999. And, so I was sort of thought I was destined to follow that path, follow them, into a Wall Street career. And I spent 20 years in a Wall Street career. I started, at Merrill Lynch as a financial advisor in their training program. Ultimately realized I wanted to do, more trading, be on a trading desk in that sort of fast-paced environment. And I spent the better part of 20 years as a high yield bond trader, at a number of different firms. And, my path took a little bit of a turn about 7 years ago. And really a big part of my story is, when I was 35 years old, I had a sequence of events that kind of occurred with me over about a 6-month period. My mom got sick and passed away. She had ALS, a pretty debilitating neurological disease.
Yep.
I lived my life, as kind of a very typical, athlete, privileged, rules don't apply to me. Kind of lived these separate lives where, I had my athlete buddies, my friends, and then I had my marriage and my wife and my home life. And, I spent sort of the last 8 or 10 months of her life, pretty disconnected to everybody because I, had trouble handling her, watching her die, being sick.
Right.
And so, I was sedated at all times, and I was always present physically, but mentally I was completely checked out. Drugs, alcohol, pills, anything I could get my hands on. It was a very, like, that's the best way to describe this. I was always there. I was always functional. I was a very functional addict, right?
Right.
And my wife knew what I was doing, and my mom ended up passing away, and ultimately, we had a conversation, and it was like, listen, we have 2 young kids, and this isn't what I signed up for, and if we didn't have these 2 young kids, I'm not sure, I'd be around right now.
Right.
And at the same time, a few months after that or before that, I don't even know the sequence of it. My son was 5, and he asked me to get down on he loved Legos. He asked me to get down on the ground and play Legos with him, right? Put together Legos. And so I got down on my knees, tried to bend down, and I had to get up after about 2 minutes because I couldn't stay on the ground. My knees were in such, I was in such pain, joint pain.
Right.
And I'm a big guy, 6'6", had a, desk job and commuted an hour each way into the city, out of the city. I sort of told myself this story that, this was my destiny. And, I had, I didn't get up all day. Everyone who got up from the desk would just, moan and groan about their aches and pains. And I just thought, this is how I'm supposed to live my life. And so understanding more about, my mom's condition and how much our lifestyles play into and affect a chronic disease,
Hmm.
having my wife, basically tell me that if we didn't have two young kids, she'd probably not be hanging around, and having my son, not being able to connect with my son on the floor when he wanted to in that moment, all within about a 6-month period, really was a wake up call for me about 7 years ago. And, had me start to change a lot of things in my life. And as I did that, I started to evaluate, like, what am I doing for a living? And do I really, enjoy, what I'm doing? Or did I just follow a few older friends on the basketball team into, a career? And that career got real good, real quick, right? The money was real good. And then the money got better. And then life happens to all of us, right? We get married and we have kids and we have obligations. We have big mortgages and country clubs and cars. And so, I felt like I was just continuing this life to feed a lifestyle that I didn't necessarily even want to begin with.
Right.
So started to really reflect on what it is, I was doing for a living. And ultimately, as of about 6 months ago, I left that career, moved across the country with my family from New Jersey to California, and kind of turned my life upside down. So that's been that's the last 20 years of my career. But primarily has been in financial services and high yield Wall Street trading bonds.
I love it. So let's start with a really simple question, because I'm sure people are thinking, dude, like financially you were killing it, but a lot of stuff was left on the table for you, right? And a lot of things that you wanted to change. So what do you do for a living these days? Like, who do you work with, and how do you even begin to describe the shift in what you were doing to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and it's been quite a shift. So that's 7 years ago. I started out with okay, my wife isn't in love with me like she used to be. So what can I do to change that, right? And I thought it was just physical. Let me look better, right? Like,
right.
I was 20 pounds overweight. I didn't gain a pound from college, but I was 6'6", 235, and pretty jacked in college. I was 6'6", 235, and a pile of mush at 35 years old, right? So I effectively gained 20 pounds. I just changed body composition. I didn't gain
Right.
any weight, but total body comp change.
Yes.
So I started to make some changes to my diet, and I started to work out a little bit more and just add like simple movement practices into my day. And these are things that I sort of stumbled upon, and all of a sudden lost 20 pounds that I didn't realize that I even had to lose.
Right.
And so I quickly realized that wasn't why my wife wasn't happy with me, but I thought that was the road to it, right? And
Right.
that was just sort of intriguing to me. And then I started to, slowly find, health and wellness as a pretty big passion of mine. And I got, instead of going home and reading research reports and quarterly reports and annual reports of companies, I would go home and listen to podcasts. I would go home and read like nutrition blogs and stuff like that.
Right.
And, it started to really click with me. Like, this is something that I actually enjoy. And so, it took me 5 years to tell myself, get myself out of this story of, who am I? I'm a high yield bond trader. I'm not a high yield bond trader. I'm Brian Pannuzzo, right?
Right.
So, it took me about 5 years to build up the courage to explore something different. And that was through, speaking to mutual friends that we have now, joining a coaching program of Jay Ferrugia's, and, realizing that, like, I was a lot more like people like you and like trainers and, like guys like Jay and Luca.
Right.
And I was like the Wall Street guys that I was hanging out with. I love those guys, but, I share a lot more common interests with, professionals like you.
Right.
And so a couple years ago, he pushed me to start a side hustle. He said to me, if you had all the money in the world and you still needed to work a few hours a day, what would you do? And I didn't quite know how to answer that. And then within 10 seconds, it came to me. I said, I really enjoyed my own transformation and what that meant to me and my marriage and my relationships and my mindset, my belief system, and all these things I've changed in my life over the last 5 years. I've really enjoyed helping friends and family, because that's what I was doing. People would see me transform. They'd see my change. They go, hey, what are you doing? Right. So you help them out. And so he said, well, you should explore that a little bit. I said, okay, cool. Sort of pushed it off to the side. And, a week later, he'd check in with me. How's it going? How's that thing going? What are we talking about? What do you mean? What do you mean, how's it going? He's like, what are you doing about it? So I realized that he wasn't going to back off, and so reached out to 10 friends and said, hey, would you be willing to let me coach you? And, I'd charge you sort of next to nothing, and we figure this out together. And I thought everyone was going to laugh at me, and they almost all said yes.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was a validation for me that, they saw something in me that I could provide some value to them. And maybe they were just trying to help me as well, because they believed in me and they appreciated me. But whatever it was, it was the launching pad for me to start to do this. And slowly over time, I've just built, confidence, my knowledge base, and my skill set to be able to do this now for a living. And so 6 months ago, I left my 20-year career in Wall Street. Moving across the country was certainly a catalyst. It was something completely different, not had nothing to do with my career. It's something that my wife and I had been talking about for a while, and just getting into a new environment for both of us. She lived in California previously before we met, but it's enabled me to sort of start fresh, completely, shift my mindset and my perspective of things. And now I can proudly say that I coach men, and I coach men who effectively are me 7 years ago. I started as, health coaching and nutrition coaching and helping people with exercise and diet, right? Like, as you know, we all know what to do. We all know we all know how to eat better.
Right.
We all know how to work out better, right? We all know what we should be doing. And the question is, why aren't we doing it? And so what became really intriguing to me is to look at all the things in my life, right? And I was very financially successful, very career driven, but I had almost incinerated the rest of my life. I fortunately caught it, before it went into flames. My marriage was crap. My relationship with my kids was subpar. My relationship with myself was awful. I constantly went to sedating myself, drugs, alcohol, isolation.
Right.
So it was like, why do I do all these things? So I've now turned it into a program where, I coach financially successful, career-driven men who have, had that success at a cost. And sometimes it's not necessarily relevant or they're not aware of it until they sort of wake up one day and they realize that it's come at a cost of the quality of their relationship with their wives, the quality of the relationship with their kids, and with themselves.
Yeah.
So that is a long-winded way to describe what I do.
No, I love it, man. I love it. And I think I want to start with the top, because I think a lot of coaching, and especially the kind of coaching you're doing, comes down to building better habits, building better routines. And, I love your Instagram because you're always talking about these sorts of things and these little things that you're doing to keep yourself on track. So let's start basic. What strategies do you use? Somebody's new, they're coming to you for advice. What strategies do you use to get someone started with building better habits, right? Just little things that are going to help get them back on track.
Yeah, it's great question. They have to be, anytime I start to work with somebody new, and you could probably appreciate this because you work with high performing people as well. They want everything. They want it all immediately, right?
Right.
And so they're expecting 15 things from you on day one that they can take and implement into their lives. And so I've realized that is, that works for a week until life punches us all in the face, right? I think The biggest thing with habit change has to be the fact that it's slow, it's achievable, and it's repeatable. So, you'll get a couch potato, right, who's sitting on their butts for most of the day, very sedentary, and all of a sudden they want to go to this, a workout that you're going to take one of your MBA guys through, right?
Right.
You get someone who's eating a heavily processed diet, and they want to go to 7 days in a row of eating super clean. It's like, what are building in proper expectations for people to let them know up front. And it's a difficult conversation. Let them know up front, like, you're 45 years old. You were probably in the best shape of your life at 21, 22, right? You've spent 20 years slowly, steadily, just like I did. I didn't change my body comp in 15 years from 21 to 35 or 36. It was a slow, steady thing. It was,
right.
A 2-pound shift. People put on 2, 3, 4 pounds a year for 20 years. Next thing you know, you wake up at 45 and you're 40 pounds overweight, right?
Right.
Like, you spent 20 years getting into that place. Why in the world do you feel the right that you can take that off in 2 months? Right. And that's what most people do, right? With their diets and with their exercise. They get all gung-ho that they're starting something new. They tell everybody about it. It engulfs their life for a period of time, and then things get difficult, and they realize, whoa, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. And so, I'll tell people that I start working with are ready for this huge, expansive program that we're going to go through. Wake up tomorrow morning and drink a glass of water and get a 10-minute walk-in. Okay, what else? That's it. That's it. Start there. Do that for a week. Become an expert at that. Like, we do these things, I do these things so that they are constantly ingraining patterns of behavior into our minds, right? And then it becomes, just another thing that you do. I mean, I wake up and I drink water. That's part of my DNA now. I don't have
Right.
to write a note to, tell myself. My students do. You might need to, but like you do that for a month and then it's what you do and you
Yep.
experience the benefit of it, right? You pick up momentum. You start to see all the things that are happening better in your life. Wow, I feel a little bit better. Oh, I don't need this cup of coffee to like go to the bathroom in the morning. I just have to drink a big cup of water,
Right.
like all these things that you're doing, you experience the benefit and you go, that's pretty good. Let me get a little bit more of that now that I can handle it and take more on. And then it's this slow momentum that just starts building steam downhill. And the next thing you know, you're living your life in a completely different way, and you don't know any other way. So that's how, it's habit change for me has to be slow, it has to be achievable, and it has to be repeatable. And if it doesn't fit those three things for people, I'd rather them not take it on right away. If they don't have the capacity to take it on, then we don't take it on right away.
I love it. So, sidebar to that, talk to me about your do and don't list. I love that. I love that. And it's something that, I think most people talk about, but I love seeing yours. So talk to me real quick about the do and don't list.
Yeah. So it's something that I actually, I've always done. I've been a list maker my entire life. I'm an analyzer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like love lists. I mean, I will make a list. I will do something that's not on that list. I will write it on the list just so I can have the experience and satisfaction of crossing
it off. Yes, it's the
good
best
does that
feeling
feel?
ever. Yeah.
So, but the thing is like I'd always default to I'm an achiever. I'm a high achiever. Let's put 30 things on the list, right?
Yep.
Like, and what happens? You get 22 of them done. And that's great. You did 22 out of 30, but you always end up looking at those 8. And I would say, 4 of the 8 at least are probably the real needle movers in our lives, right? Like those things that are a little bit difficult, a little bit uncomfortable, and that we just don't get to because we don't prioritize it, or it takes us a little bit out of our comfort zone to do. So I've started to make my lists a lot shorter, and I still catch myself all the time. It's Sunday or Monday. I'm getting ready for the new week. I'm all jazzed up, and I got 15 things that I want to do. Well, why not just pick the most important 1, 2, 3? Write those down. Have your side list, like your back list, right? And do those 3 things. And you don't do anything else until those 3 things are done.
Yep.
And those 3 things you'll notice tend to be repetitive, like in your life. Like they are the ones that create momentum for the rest of your day. And so, the things that I do are tried and true, foundational. I wake up, I jump in a shower, I drink a lot of water, I take my greens, I move around. I've experienced doing that enough now for 7 years that when I start my day like that, I know the rest of my day is better. It could go to shit in by 3 o'clock, but
Right.
I know that I've accomplished something. So, they are parts of my life that I just identify myself with. It's who I am. Those are things that I do. What I've been introduced to is must not do. Not to do, because those things are just as important. Because I've noticed that the areas of my life that I've wanted to change creep back into my life, because even though I've been doing this now for 7 years, I have 15 to 20 years of experience of living another way.
Right.
So, even now I still want to revert back to, my old self, my old personality. So it's a constant reminder to myself, I do these things, I don't do these things. And the more you wake up and do the things that you do and don't do the things that you don't do, the more you become a different person. It's just slowly chipping away at the person that you've built up over time to become. It just takes time to change that person.
I love it. So in your world and the people that you're coaching, I'd imagine that time is of the absolute essence when it comes to working out, right? So like you were working 12-hour days. You didn't have 2 hours at lunch or whenever, at any point in time, to go and just crush it in the gym. So do you ever feel like you need to convince somebody to work out? Or is it something more practical with your people, like helping them figure out strategies as to when they can find the time to work out?
Yeah. So like I said before, everybody knows sort of what to do, right? Everybody knows that getting a workout in would be beneficial to them. So very rarely do I have to convince somebody that working out is an important thing. What I find myself convincing people more of is because these guys, like your guys, are high achievers, right? Like a lot of times I'm pulling the reins back on somebody,
Right.
or convincing them. Like, here's a conversation that I have with somebody all the time. They don't have their 1 hour to get their big workout in.
Right.
Therefore, they give up on the entire, day of working out.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, cool. I get it. Like, you don't have your class to go to, but, do you have, you're at a desk all day. Do you sit all day? Could you get up and move around a little bit once an hour? Could you jump into a conference room where nobody is? If you feel uncomfortable moving around on the desk with 50 other people in eyesight of you, could you jump in and do 10 push-ups and 10 squats and 10 lunges and a couple tricep dips off of a chair, like once every hour for 5 minutes? Could you find blocks of 5 minutes 10 times in a day? There's 50 minutes right there. There's your 50-minute workout.
Right.
Is it as powerful as that workout that you're going to do for 50 straight minutes? Maybe not, right? But is it better than zero? 100%.
Absolutely.
So I encourage people to find these windows of time throughout our day, right? Constantly audit your day, because as busy as you are and as busy as I am, like if we audited our day, like we'd be like, oh man, I really wasn't doing a damn thing during that 20 minutes, right?
Right.
So, could you get something in? I'll leave Post-it notes all over my house that just say like 5 push-ups. If I walk by it, I got to do 5 push-ups,
I like
these
that.
little things throughout our day to just add, like little reminders. We constantly need reminders. And I find myself having to convince people more of the compounding effect of these little daily habits that we have, right? Like, how much are you moving throughout the day? Like one of the first things we track is how many steps are you taking a day? It's great. You get in your car, you drive to the gym, you do your workout class, you get back in your car, you drive to work, you sit at work, you drive home, you sit at the couch, you go to the dinner table, you go back to the couch, you go to bed.
Right.
Like, if we look at cultures that live long lives with people that are 100+ years old, right? These blue zones, centenarian cultures, they have 2 things in common. They eat real food. The diets are very diverse, right?
Yep.
Real foods. And they have a sense of community and move around. Like, they move around all day. Like, they're constantly moving around. So I would argue, now it's a little bit different for, guys that you work with. These are performance people. Like, their jobs depend on it, right? But like for the average Joe, for the average, adult, like, you're better off just walking all day, get some push-ups in here and there. Like, everyone should go to the gym and lift heavy stuff and train, get their heart rate up, get themselves moving. But for the most part, like, you could live a pretty healthy life eating like a pretty balanced diet and just moving around a bunch.
Absolutely. And the way I describe it is just thinking about checking the box, right? I mean, you're using a different analogy, but it's the same concept of like, you don't always have 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever your baseline is, right? And I think especially people that have been athletes struggle with this because they're used to like these extended periods of time of sustained working out or, training or practicing. So sometimes it's this big mind shift to say, hey man, look, sometimes I've got 15 minutes. I'm just going to go do kettlebell swings on the minute. I'm going to do 10 swings on the minute for 15 minutes. That's 150 swings. Like, that's a great little workout. And like you said, it's so much better than just sitting around and just like, oh, I don't have my hour, so I'm just not going to do anything today.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are me. They're ex-athletes, right? We all remember how we performed at 20 years old.
Yes.
And if they're not an athlete, they're an alpha male. And it's like, if it's not the best thing out there, like, they don't want it, So it's a lot of times convincing people to just dial it back a little bit, right? Like, convince one of your athletes that they're better off to, having a recovery day than they are like having a double session in the gym,
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition, because again, you're working with, like you said, type A, alpha males, super successful, and I'd imagine they're on the go quite a bit. So what issues do these people struggle with when it comes to nutrition?
I don't want people to. It's a tough life that a lot of people like this lead. They have busy work lives. They have busy family lives. They want to be with their kids. They're traveling. They have sports. They have client events. I try to get people that I work with and people that I speak to control what they can, right?
Yep.
And then give themselves grace when they can't. And so for me and for a lot of people, that's typically the morning. So that's why I'm very, very adamant about, morning routines and getting yourself up and getting yourself started. A lot of times guys that, I work with have client lunches, they have client dinners. They can't necessarily control, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. the way they would like to. But most often, you can control 5 a.m. to 11 a.m., right? And so that's why, I'm so big with guys with waking up. Make sure you're hydrating. Make sure you're getting, a couple servings of greens in for your first couple of meals if you can't, do that the rest of the day. And then it's focusing on like simple things. Like for most people that are fairly sedentary, and I just mean like, having desk jobs, typically like higher protein, higher fat starts to the day are usually pretty good.
Yep.
Eggs, spinach, avocado, eggs, and bacon, as opposed to a bagel, cereal,
Yes.
oatmeal with no protein, right? Like, and then I ask them, be aware, like really bring awareness into how you are feeling throughout the day. Like, do you feel like you need that third cup of coffee at 11 a.m. or are you a little bit more mentally clear and sharp? How are you feeling during that 10:30 meeting?
Yep.
Are you getting hungry at 10:30 or 11 and then like, Danny down the row like has like this bag of pretzels that you just start eating. Like, so all of these things, I ask people to start to be aware of, and because it draws on experience. And once you experience feeling better, you can actually, chemically rewire your brain to want more of what you're doing. It takes time, but that's what I ask people to do. And then, just simple things like do the best you can, like give yourself a break. Like if you have to go out to a client lunch or a dinner, cool. Like enjoy yourself, have the glass of wine, have the vodka, whatever. But like, eat unlimited amounts of steak and vegetables. As you know, like there's only so much steak and vegetables you can eat, right, man?
Right.
And if the onion rings fly by, grab one, grab a half of one,
Right.
like enjoy yourself, but do, there's certain foundational principles. Like if you can, keep it simple. If you can kill it, if you can grow it, if you can pick it, it's good to go. You can eat as much as you want of that.
Yeah.
There'll be palate fatigue that sets in at some point, where you're done. So I try to keep nutrition very simple. It's something that I typically don't even deal with people for about a month or so and working with them. I'd rather them focus on, fundamental foundational habits. And once they start to pick those up, then we handle more nutrition stuff. But keeping it simple and controlling your morning, I think, are the two key things for guys.
Dude, I can't stress winning the day highly enough. And I think the older you get and the more responsibility you have, the more you appreciate that, right? Whether it's owning your own business, having children, whatever the case may be, setting your own hours. Like the one time you are generally going to have to yourself is between 5 and 7 a.m. And if you don't take advantage of that time, a lot of times you end up being mercy to other people's schedules and agendas. Yep. So if you really want to, like you talked about, moving the needle forward, if you want to win the day and you want to move the needle forward, you got to get up, 30 minutes to an hour before you really need to be up to get some things done and start checking those boxes right away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get up, I made a career getting up at 4 a.m., but that's because I had to. I started work at 6:30. So if getting up at 4 is not for you, get up when you can, but I totally agree with you. If you have young children, if you have a career that starts at the typical 8 to 9 a.m., get up earlier than you think. You'll get more done in that half hour to 60 minutes than you will all day. It really sets the tone for the rest of the day. It changed my life. Getting up that time changed my life.
Absolutely. So we all know someone that can just be crushing it at work, yet struggling mightily away from it due to the stress involved. And I mean, you just explained it right there, whether it's lack of sleep, whether it's a ton of stress and anxiety from work, whether it is all the other things that go into a high performing job. Like you talked about client dinners and that sort of thing that keep you out past, when you would normally want to go to bed. When it comes to stress management with your clientele, where do you even begin?
Yeah. So two spots. One is finding the source, right? Like oftentimes it's not necessarily what we think it is. Work is not necessarily the source of stress. It could be something at home. We didn't get to the gym because we didn't want to work out. We didn't get to the gym because, we had a tough conversation with our wife and it put us in a bad mood. And then it, spiraled at work that day. And, then work was tough. And then we went home instead of, having a conversation with our wife, we opened up a bottle of wine and we had a couple drinks. So it's really, slowing down and finding the source and seeing if it's repetitive, and then really addressing that. And then, that's a deeper conversation and that's a deeper set of, kind of exercises that we do. But oftentimes, I just find people don't give themselves some grace, right? Like we're buddies. You call me, and I'm having a tough day, and I tell you about all the things going wrong in my life, and you go, "Come on, Brian, pick it up. You get this. You're doing great, man. You just moved across the country, you changed your
Right.
career. Like, give yourself like a break, man. Come on." And so, as quick as you are to pick me up, right? Pick a teammate up. You are just as fast to hang up the phone or whatever, and or leave our discussion, and then go do the same thing to yourself. Like, especially men, we as
Yes.
men are so quick to pick each other up, right? And I play team sports, I get it. You pick up your teammate, but then like you don't do it to yourself. You don't like dust yourself off, right? Like
Right.
it's just one day, it's just one meal. Or I can't tell you how many times, I'll talk to someone and they'll say, it was such a tough weekend. I had my in-laws in town. I had these friends visiting, this, that, like soccer all over the place. I'm like, bro, it's Wednesday. It's not Monday. What are you doing? Like you're one meal away from being back on track.
Yep.
You're one workout away from being back on your workout. Like we don't oftentimes just say, okay, like had a bad run. Let's start now. It
Right.
can always start. It can always start and end right now. And I don't think we have that attitude enough where we can just, you know, pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and just get back at it. And for me and a lot of the guys I work with, I talk about compound interest and the cumulative effect of our actions. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Like we don't, value that enough. Like we put so much weight behind a particular meal or a weekend or a workout, when it's just like, if we just do the little things more often, they stack on top of each other. And next thing you know, like you're in a skyscraper, like
Yeah.
so I don't think people pick themselves up and dust themselves off enough. I don't think they give themselves a break enough. That's why people, go to coaches. That's why, you have clients. That's why I have clients.
Right.
We do it to ourselves, that's why I have coaches,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
I think if people were just a little bit easier on themselves and just realize that, this is one meal out of 21, this is one workout out of 7+ in a week, right? Like your guys are probably 14.
Right.
Like if it's a bad workout, if it's a bad meal, just get the next one, man. Get the next one.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
it. So, one thing that I talk about a ton on this show, and maybe not in the interview section, but especially in like my warm ups and, like the first portion of the show, is the importance of my family and why I make it such a focal point of my life, right? Like, love my parents, love my sister, but we're not the most tight knit group. So, for me, like my family, my wife, my kids, they are my world. So, a lot of the people you work with are killing it at work. They're high performers. They're doing everything, that makes them successful in that realm, but they're dropping the ball at home. So
Yeah.
what steps do you use to get people like that back on track?
Yeah, I totally agree. Success in one pillar of our life, when uh, when focused on solely, can only last for so long before the others break down at its expense. So you can focus on your career for only so long, and you can excel in it for only so long before other things start to break down. So people look take out your calendar right now. I bet you have 15 work things scheduled in the next 7 days, right? Like,
Yep.
do you have a date with your wife on there? Do you have a date with your kids? Your kids are old enough,
Right.
you could have an experience with your 8-year-old, right? You
Yep.
can have an experience with your 6-year-old.
Yep.
Do we schedule the time? So, I go through scheduling exercises with people on Sundays and Mondays, primarily Sunday when it's fresh, where they put in, to the extent that they put in all of their self-care and leisure time first, right, for people.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
it's Sunday morning, right? Like you have now, it's for guys who have to work, a 9 to 5. Like obviously you have to be there from 9 to 5. I get it, but when are you working out? Put that on the calendar first. When are you taking your wife on a date? Put that on the calendar. When are you having some quality time with your kids? Put that on the calendar. So, you can date your wife, you can date your kids. Schedule that time. If it's not on the calendar, as you know, things that will fall in and take priority over that because of the urgency that we feel, right? Our kids are always going to be there, but this
Right.
fire pops up. So we have to put the fire out, and we continually do that over time. and next thing you know, like your relationship with your family is not exactly what you want it to be. So you have to make it the priority that it is, and you have to schedule it. So I tell people, they have to schedule time. I make it mandatory that they schedule dates. And it's not necessarily a weekly thing, right? Like your family is as young as mine. Like for us to schedule weekly dates with our wife, it's tough. I can't do it.
Right.
So go back to what you can achieve. So let's start with one a month.
Right.
Let's accomplish one a month. Let's get one a month. Let's say to ourselves, wow, that was amazing.
Right.
My wife and I with no kids, that was amazing. Let's
Right.
try to do two. Next month, let's get two on the calendar. And get together, you put them on the calendar, and that's it. You handle everything. You get the babysitter. You do it all. Schedule a time with your kids, and then everything else fits in after that. All the things that you normally do that you prioritize fit in after that. But your family has to come first.
I love it. One thing that I read, and I don't remember where this was, but basically by the time your kids are 18 and they're ready to go to school, you've already exhausted 90% of the time that you will have with them their entire lives. And when I read that, like that was like earth shattering to me, right? Because you assume, oh, well, hey, if I live to 80 or whatever, 90, I've got all this extra time. But like, no, like you have so much time between 0 and 18. You have to maximize that because after that, it's really bonus time. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's part of the reason why, we've talked a little bit about this. I'm in this weird stage of my career where, I've had I got a second chance. I get a second chance at this. I lived my life one way for 20 years and for 10 of which, I've had kids, and, I wish I could have done it a different way for 10. And now I have an opportunity to build the life that I want, have a career that I'm passionate about. And also, as I was saying to you, I make breakfast from 7 to 8 a.m. with my kids. I pick them up at 3 p.m. These are things I haven't done. I haven't done these things for 10 years, since they've been alive. So, and they're only going to think I'm cool for so long, right? Like,
right.
My son is only around. My son's 10. Like in 8 years, he's gone. He's gone, right? Like in 8 years, my daughter will be 13, 14. Like she's not going to really want to hang with me that much,
Right.
So like, we have this, especially guys that I work with, right? Like we have this hustle and grind mentality throughout our 20s, 20s and 30s are fine, but like into our 40s and, or even 50, like we constantly like grind. Like this is when like we're never going to get this time back with our families. And so the world is different. I take care of myself physically, right? Mentally. We're going to live, long time. Like, why can't I go grind at 51, 10 years from now when my kids don't really give a crap about me, right?
I love that. And I've had that exact same thought. Like, look, man, when they're out of the house, like I'm only going to be 53, 55. Like, I don't feel like that's old anymore. You know what I mean? Like our ability and the way we take care of ourselves, like 53, 55, man, I could have another 15, 20 years of good work in me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, the world's changed. The way we communicate changed. The internet's changed everything. We're taking better care of ourselves. Like, when we were 20, 50 was ancient, right? Like, it's just not that way. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just our perception. But, I don't really feel any different than I did when I was 25. When I'm about to be 42. So,
I love it.
I've shifted that mentality, and it's been unbelievable to realize that I have so much more time. I used to think that I had to make so much money by the time I was years old because I was ancient in the financial world. And then I just go off to a pasture, like.
Yeah.
When does that stop? Like when most successful people in the world, do they ever really stop working? No. Probably not.
No.
Right?
All right, my guy, big question time. If you could alter the space-time continuum and give young Brian Pannuzzo one piece of advice about training and or life, what would it be?
This is great. So I would say I lived my life fairly distracted at all times. And it was kind of like a what's next mentality, right?
Yep.
And not necessarily obsessed with money, but just what do I have to do next? Where do I have to be next? What needs my attention? And, not present, and I've heard this phrase, be where your feet are.
Yep.
A while back. And I've really, really tried to embody that as much as possible. Like be where your feet are. Even, even when I didn't have kids, just like really, truly enjoy some of the things that I was doing or the places that I've gone. Like basketball has taken me some amazing places. Now with children, literally be where they are and not worry about, what, email that I have to read next or, what my workout is tomorrow or what I'm eating later, just slow down and engage with whoever it is I'm with, whether
Yep.
it be a meal with friends and family or on the floor with my kids or in a workout, like, I mean, how often am I in a workout and I'm like listening to some podcast for personal development? Like, that's great, but like, why not just enjoy the workout, man?
Right.
Like just be there. And so, I've started to do that and it's been pretty amazing. It's a little scary sometimes being in your own thoughts when you're alone, but,
Yes.
but it's really been interesting. And if that's one thing I could change, it would be, stop trying to figure out what's next for 35 years of my life. It's basically what I've been doing.
I love it. All right, my guy. Last but not least, we've got our lightning round. So,
Cool.
number one, what's your career highlight so far as a coach?
I think the fact that I could just call myself a coach
Yeah.
is pretty amazing. I spent 20 years doing something different. And the fact that, I was able to force myself out of my comfort zone and to push myself to do something different and to change my life for the better is a highlight. Whatever comes next, whoever I impact is going to be amazing. And I've already impacted a lot of lives and I plan on impacting more. But just the fact that I can call myself a coach and not a high yield bond trader is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Okay, number two, what book or books are you reading right now?
So I just finished the Perfect Week Formula.
Oh, yeah.
Which we got at the event that we went to for Craig Ballantyne. It's
Yep.
amazing. If you're looking for planning, habit change, putting up boundaries, a lot of the things that we talked about, I was actually already doing, but I didn't have structure around. That's an amazing quick read. I just finished that. I think it's like out this week or so. I think we got an advanced copy of it. I just started reading Crucial Conversations, a book that has been recommended by a couple friends of ours like 100 times. I finally had to start reading it.
Yep.
And then I've read it a couple times, but I go back to it, every couple of days. New Man Emerging, which is by an author named Mike DeSanti, who's a friend of ours.
Oh, okay.
Amazing book, coach of mine, amazing person, amazing book, really good wisdom in there. So those are the three books that I've been reading over the last week.
I love it, man. Okay, number three, what's the deal with the cold showers, man?
So I started taking cold showers about 5 years ago when, I started to find all these, cool health benefits and, cold shower, cold exposure can increase recovery and increase your metabolism and, help your immune system and reduce inflammation, all this stuff, right? Cool. What I realized quickly was that I wasn't a huge fan of taking the shower. And when I get in it, the moment that I was about to turn it down to cold, I'd start to talk myself out of it. And so, I experienced turning it all the way down and then the panic that ensues in your brain. And then this sense of relief, like, okay, it's not such a big deal. And so I started to really think about this recently. And, I just started about a week ago. I used to take a shower like after I did like maybe 3 or 4 things in the morning. And now I get up 4:35, whatever time it is. I walk into the bathroom. I turn it on as cold as, and I'm in Southern California, so it's not like crazy, but it's like 60 degrees, 58 degrees.
Right.
I turn it on as cold as can be, and I go right in. And it's like the first couple times I did it, it was like I was walking down death row, like from my bed to the bathroom.
Right.
So what it's come down to for me is it's a mental thing. And it's like if I talk to people and they're like, oh, I can never do that, And I have things in my life that I can, I'm afraid of heights. Like I would never go skydiving. I can never bungee jump or whatever. Really? Could you never do it? Like, or is it just your brain telling you? Like,
right.
I could never, 5 years ago, I could never fathom changing a career. And so if your brain, if you can tell your brain that you could take a cold shower, what else can you tell your brain that you can do that your brain's telling you that you can't do, right? So maybe I'm getting physiological benefits. Maybe inflammation's being reduced. Maybe my immune system is good. Who knows? The only reason I do it is to constantly flex that muscle of telling my brain that I'm in charge of it, and that I can do anything that I want to do. And it's a bitch, man. Before you go, I find every excuse possible before I'm about to start. And every time it's the same thing. It's gotten easier and easier. And that's why I've added this little twist in for me because I used to go take my hot shower, then turn it to cold. Yep. And I got a little too comfortable with that. And that was a little bit too easy. So now it's like, okay, let me see if I can challenge myself a little bit more. So once this gets easier, then I'll have to figure out something else. But I've really started to understand that our brains are constantly trying to protect us, right? Constantly trying to protect us, keep us out of harm's way. And like, it's cold water. It's not harm's way, but your brain doesn't know that. So constantly trying to push yourself into getting uncomfortable, I think is a pretty pretty powerful thing. So that's why I take the cold showers, man.
The next thing is going to be the Tony Robbins. Have you heard of this? His 56-degree cold plunge that he's got outside his house.
I have, and that's why I thought about this. I'm like, oh, I should get a chest freezer, but my wife would probably divorce me. I don't know. But like, so that's the thing. Like, right away, change your state, right? Like, wake up, change your state. So, I mean, dude, you get out, you put some cold water on yourself that early in the morning. Like, you don't need a cup of coffee. You're ready to go. Like,
right.
So, I mean, just the dopamine hit and waking up and feeling like you're ready to take on the world is worth it. But it's just a mental battle, man, constantly, and I'm always talking to myself mentally. So trying to talk to myself the right way.
I love it, man. All right, last but not least, number 4. What's next for Brian Pannuzzo? What you got going on? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited to just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm such an analytical person. I've been in my head for so long, for so many years, that I'm just enjoying this new phase of my life. I live in Southern California. I have a new career. I'm not necessarily worried about where I'm going to be in a year. I'm also surrendering to the fact that my career could take me in so many different places and avenues that I don't even comprehend yet, because I haven't been introduced to somebody that that takes me down a path that I didn't necessarily know.
Sure.
I'm gonna coach men and do what I'm very good at and what I believe I have a purpose to do right now. And when something else comes up and it's the right move for me, I'm gonna embrace that, and I'm not gonna get stuck in thinking that I'm a coach, because I got stuck thinking that I was a Wall Street guy for so long. So I'm just gonna take each day as it comes and do the best I can and be the best person that I can be.
I love it, man. Well, Brian, you've been so good to catch up with today. Really appreciate you coming on. Where can my listeners find out more about you and everything you have going on?
You can reach me at on Instagram, Brian Pannuzzo, BrianPannuzzo. TheSuccessLift.com will be up and running shortly. But until then, I've developed some free content for anybody who's listening. An evening and morning routine that I sort of stumbled upon and figured out through trial and error over time. And DM me. I'll send you that for free. And those are the two best places to reach me right now.
I love it, man. We'll make sure we get those links in the show notes. And again, Brian, man, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. This was great.
You got it, bud. I appreciate you having me, man. This has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much.